change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to be back for episode 18 of the Fundraising AI podcast. And today is a great day. Scott and I really enjoy when we can bring special guests on this podcast. We've only done that a few times now. And today is going to be someone that I haven't spent a lot of time with, but Nick and I think we were traveling together a few months back and we talked for a little bit and found out that we have a lot of similarities and just similar interests as well. And so we scheduled this a while ago and here we are today. So I am Nathan Chappell. I'm here with Scott Rosenkrantz and our special guest, Nick Lynch, who is joining us today, also from Southern California. So Scott, you're the outlier today in New York.
Left out.
Yeah.
We're doing these in person, especially when it's in California.
Yeah, that never happens. So Nick, welcome. And we're really excited for you to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, let's just dive in. I mean, I know we try to keep these podcasts pretty short and sweet, and so that people in their busy lives can just kind of figure out who's who in the zoo and what's going on in AI and all these things. And you've got a lot of exciting things and a really interesting background. I was interrogating your website using ChatGPT on the airplane and really trying to understand what you do. And you do a lot of different things. So why don't, just for our listeners, introduce yourself and essentially maybe your journey into starting Kaleidoscope, what Kaleidoscope does as a whole. And then we're going to ask you a lot of questions about that because I'm already like thinking of all these different things of like, how do they do this or that? And then I know we want to get into at the end a conversation about your new book and being an author, a published author. It's a labor of, I don't know, love or something. It's a labor of something. So I'll be really curious to compare and contrast your
experience. That's a fair assessment for sure.
Yeah, a labor of something. Well, yeah, so go for it. Yeah, let us know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Lynch. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kaleidoscope.io. From a professional standpoint, I've been based here in LA for almost 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about, and mostly focused in advertising and marketing on the technology side. So building solutions for brands and advertisers to better target their audiences on digital and social media. To kind of date myself a little bit, I was an early MySpace guy. So like that's how long I've been.
Do you still have your MySpace site up or is that, do they take it down?
They took that down and they've it's several different iterations. I think it's still around, but it's definitely not what it used to be with the top 8 and all the other fun stuff that everybody used to have. But I mean, that's how long I've really kind of been in this space when it comes to leveraging data and identifying audiences, and even some of the fun stuff that now is really prevalent in terms of everybody's talking about AI, but we were doing machine learning forever, right? And thinking about ways to optimize ad inventory,
right?
Doing dynamic creative optimization and swapping in high performing text and images and color, right? So it's been kind of fun to see how all of that stuff that we've been doing in the advertising and the marketing space and the technology space for, again, almost 15, 20 years, now kind of giving its shine and how kind of creating a user interface for people to actually do this kind of stuff and not needing a machine learning background or a deep technology space. Yeah. But from a personal standpoint, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a Make-A-Wish kid. I've been a part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation family ever since they sent me to Disneyland when I was 3.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, no. And I've been really involved with the LA chapter here for almost 10 years in varying capacities, been on their advisory board, helped them launch their Young Professionals Council. I volunteer. The not so secret is that anything they ask me to do, I will do. Cause
right. Now it's not a secret for sure.
It's not a secret. And at the beginning of the pandemic, when things started to close down, in-person events weren't going to be happening for who knew when, the first thing I thought of is what can I do to help? And I knew that with my marketing background and my advertising background, I knew that companies were spending billions of dollars a year in COGS marketing, corporate social responsibility, this ESG thing, right? All of these sort of positive things that companies were doing. And I knew that they would spend more in those spaces if they had better analytics and reporting to not only what those dollars and those donations and those sponsorships did from a impact level, but also like from a brand level. Like, did people actually see our collaboration with this organization? And did it drive new people to our website? And were people talking about it in a positive way? And I also knew at the time that this media, this thing called influencer marketing was becoming like a medium that was being highly leveraged. Billions of dollars were now also being spent in this space. And I knew that if I could triangulate influencers that had alignment and vision and value alignment with nonprofits and corporate partners, that I could create this sort of 3-tiered collaboration and actually escalate and scale and amplify really great causes and really great missions, and also measure all of that so everybody knew what happened. And that was really the genesis of Kaleidoscope. We built some tools and technology to facilitate those partnerships and those sort of visualizing and understanding who those people were and connecting them, and then obviously collecting all the metrics and building some dashboards and building some analytic suites around what we call like the double ROI, return on investment for the corporate partner, so they can see sort of marketing metrics, and then return on impact in terms of what did those partnerships and collaborations actually drive to the nonprofit. And that's really where we started, and did a lot of really fun work at the very beginning of the pandemic around that work. And then fast forward now to over 4 years now, which is really crazy.
Right.
We've kind of become and have built our own niche as like the Deloitte for social good. Anytime where media marketing and measurement sort of intersect for social good, for the for-profit side or the nonprofit side, we step in. And that could be as straightforward as like an agency and actually still launching influencer campaigns. It could be creating content in media for a particular initiative or a particular partnership, or it could look like some type of measurement process or even tool or technology to help facilitate what an organization is trying to measure. Like, for example, an organization called us like a year ago and said, can you help us measure inspiration? Well, of course we can. And then so we sort of built some process and some tools to help do that. So that's kind of what Kaleidoscope has become over the last 4 years, which has been awesome. We've helped raise millions of dollars and helped reach tens of millions of people, and all of the stuff we've done.
That's cool. I love having that foot in kind of both camps of working with for-profits doing good and working with nonprofits trying to execute on the same mission.
Yeah.
Being in that space, what are some maybe surprising differences or similarities between the two and how they approach the challenges that they're trying to solve?
I mean, I think the biggest misconception, I think, when you compare like a for-profit organization and a nonprofit organization is, I think you assume that the for-profit organization is organized and has their stuff together.
Right.
We're all sort of flying by the seat of our pants, right? And like everybody has some level of systems and organization, but even on the for-profit side, if I'm asking for, hey, like, how do I work to get this level of data, or how can I integrate with this system? It's like, oh, we don't do that, or we don't have that. So I think one silver lining in all this that nonprofit organizations should feel proud about is that we're all trying our best. Even like the largest, most well-funded, high revenue generating organizations have similar data footprints and data processes that a lot of nonprofits do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably comforting and scary all at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, going back a couple steps, because you have this idea, it's during COVID. That's not a time where a lot of people are looking at starting something totally new, and especially in an area that was a little bit more Wild West and uncertain. But you not only created a business, you created a B Corp. And I do a lot of public speaking. I talk to organizations, to individuals and groups around kind of the evolution of the nonprofit space. And one of those areas that we see at Major Shift, and we talk about this a lot in the generosity crisis, is that people can express generosity in a lot of different ways. That giving to a traditional 501c3 charity is called into question, whether or not, especially with Gen Z and millennial to an extent of like, well, what does the tax status have to matter? So what was did you like know from the start that you wanted to create a B Corp? And I guess all that to say is that I think B Corps are just kind of that great bridge that can, one, attract capital because they're a corporation, but also have this almost insane, like maniacal fix on helping and doing good at the same time. So it's not a trade-off. So what was that journey like? And was it really hard to create a B Corp and get certified?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we didn't initially set out to become a B Corp. In fact, we spun up a 501c3 almost right after we spun up our Delaware C Corp, for the simple reason that we knew that there would be some type of service or solution or product that we wanted to donate or to give or to provide to other nonprofits. And we thought that the 501c3 would probably be the best vehicle because we could get other foundations to help fund it. There was just, from a funding perspective, we thought that would probably be the best route. But as Kaleidoscope became more real and it was less of an idea in a spreadsheet, more of something that was more automated in technology, we really looked at the B Corp as a further, more of from a optics perspective, further evidence that what we were trying to do and what our mission is and what our philosophy is truly trying to bridge that gap and be truly a social enterprise. And then obviously from an operating perspective, still allowing to get investment and funding while
Right.
also doing good. And so I think that one of the misnomers is like you can't make money and also do good at the same time. And we just feel like through our efforts and through our case studies and through this process of becoming a B Corp, we just felt like all of those things stacked up to sort of where I'm a big show it, not tell it. And so
Mhm.
all of those things really helped us really show like that's exactly who we are and what we wanted to be. The process was arduous in some ways and easy in other ways. I mean, I think it took a little over a year to go through the full process. I think if we spent a little more time on some areas, maybe it would have gone closer. But I think that, yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it was an interesting process for sure.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So how you've been doing this for 4 years, and again, like Nathan said, started in a time when everything was kind of chaotic. So how has Kaleidoscope and your work evolved over the past 4 years in ways that maybe you didn't originally expect it to, or picture it when you had this idea in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we initially started the company, we thought we were really just going to be like an analytics sort of solution and a platform that connected and measured. Like that was really what we thought was the business. Like, okay, we're going to connect the dots. We're going to build some tools to help automate some of the processes, and we're going to allow everybody to sort of work together collaboratively. And what happened is that we built that and we still use it to this day, but it was much more, we've really become, like I said, like almost like a white glove consultancy where there is a mix of, it's almost like a technology enabled services business as opposed to a technology business. And so I think that was been I think totally unexpected and a pleasant transition and a very happy transition. But I think out of all of the things that we had thought we were going to be and what we had planned, I think it definitely what we look like today. I had no idea what it was going to, we would be this way when we started.
But I think Scott and I had the similar kind of original thought is that we're going to build machine learning models for these great nonprofits and we're going to hand them these scores and it's going to transform how they do business.
Yep.
And fast forward to today, which is a lot of handholding, a lot of support through our solutions architects and others that when there's a quote that CEO of Data Robot said that 70% of AI transformation has nothing to do with data or models. It has to do with people. And no matter what your platform is, whether it's AI or not, that digital transformation or AI transformation is all about change management. And I think we were pretty naive in that as well in the beginning of just like, hey, we're doing this stuff. And frankly, more Scott than me, I'm joking, but it like would get like really upset when people weren't using it. We're like, what are you doing? Like, this is like literally the best model that's ever been created for your organization by far. And you're not even using it. Like we're tracking your login. You haven't even logged in like 3 months. And it's infuriating. And you have to learn that it's not about that. Like the very best models unused will do nothing, and they'll sit there and you have to really provide that support to kind of help people kind of navigate through those transitions. So it sounds like you built a business that really is for full service from that perspective of having the platforms when they're ready, but kind of wrapping your arms around them to support them through that journey.
Yeah. And I think at some point we'll get there. I mean, I think I was naive is I think an understatement in terms of where people were in adopting and looking at impact the way that we do. And I think people are now finally starting to at least talk like we talked and look at it the way we look at it. I mean, we to the point and talk about scoring, and we came up with this concept called the Kaleidoscore, which essentially looks at all of the initiatives and all of the efforts that you do to reach people, to teach people, to engage people, and ultimately drive them to an action. And ultimately the hope was to be able to create this score based on all of those efforts. Like you got 75 out of 100 or whatever, based on all of the initiatives and the way that you reach people and the content that you created and all these types of things. If you wanted to get closer to 100, these are like the two things that we would recommend, and essentially create this score in this model that really enabled people and provided a level of guidance of how you can actually improve your impact overall. And that's whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. That was where the goal was. But ultimately, like, people just aren't there yet. We still have this score, it's patent pending. We all have all the data points. We sort of have a rough model, but I think it's really at this point, we're at a stage in this sort of partnership of public, private, and corporate, where we're all just trying to figure out where we fit in and where we can best amplify and where our resources are best utilized before we can even talk about like optimizing what that even looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we often talk about how like Nathan said, we kind of have to meet our clients where they are, right? Yeah. And our success might be, all right, you got to be at 100, but knowing that we're early adopters, maybe a little bit further along, maybe we have that immediate buy-in that not everybody has, and maybe in the nonprofit sector, that it's recalibrating that, all right, and
Mhm.
reassessing, well, what is success and how is that defined from the client perspective? Maybe they're only
Sure.
using a portion of it, but if it helps make them be more efficient and identify new relationships, then that's success, right? We know
Yep.
that they can go further. So in terms of like case studies, what's your favorite case study that since you've been doing this for a while? What's kind of your go-to story or your one that strikes home the most?
Yeah, no, my favorite one that I have consistently used for the last 4 years is our partnership with the American Lung Association. So here in LA, they were, again, COVID sort of shut down their gala. They didn't know what to do. They were able to wrangle, I think, like a dozen or so baseball players in Southern California. So on the Padres, the Angels, and the Dodgers to do like a talent show. They would film their talent and they would sort of put this all together into a streaming event. People would watch and vote on who had the best talent. And that was like that was their transition to their gala. That was like the event that they did. And they had no idea how to market it. They had no idea how to measure it. And they had no idea like what was going to happen. And so I sort of put a plan in place that essentially said, like, let's measure everything you plan on doing, email, everything. Let's just see what's going to happen. And let's also line up some content creators or some influencers to help promote this thing. Because this is the digital event, like what you would normally do. Let's not even like think about just doing that. Let's like really diversify everything. And so going into that, the assumption was that they had this massive email list, like several tens of thousands, 20, 30,000 people on an email list, a pretty decent social media following. And so the assumption going into that was that the email list was going to drive everything. And we were just going to pretty much repeat that on some sort of like ramped up cadence and then do some light social media stuff, maybe do a mailer to get people to be involved. And because we measured things on the outset, we learned right away that email actually drove nothing. And social media was what was actually driving the most traffic to the website. And so that was it, like the first aha. And then once we started implementing some of the social media or the influencer marketing pieces, we saw right away, like every time we did an influencer post or influencer marketing partnership, traffic would go up, registrations would go up, donations, everything would go up. And honestly, it's like, it doesn't need to be pretty. You just need to measure it. Like the first Kaleidoscope platform was an ugly Google spreadsheet with like dozens and dozens of columns and rows, right? By doing that on a weekly basis, measuring everything we did, we saw that every time we did a certain type of content on Instagram on this certain day and worked with these certain partners, we just saw, peaks every time we did that. And that's, to me, is like my favorite case study, because not only were we able just to see everything that was happening, optimize almost everything in real time, identify partners that worked, ramped up the things that didn't, decelerated the things that didn't work, to the point where we saved them a bunch of money, and they smashed their goal. I think they were like 170% to goal.
Wow.
And like a cost ratio of like 13 or 10%. I mean, it's silly.
Yeah.
And so that's my favorite, like just the power of just measuring what you do and then finding partners and amplifying the things that work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was just reading an article this weekend. Vogue Business put out on, I don't know if you saw the quantitative study on Gen Z and millennials and how different younger audiences are engaging and the drivers of like influencer campaigns and social and those things. And really one of the biggest takeaways from me, and this will be a good transition into talking about your book, is really about the idea of community. And younger audiences who are future leaders are really looking at ways to come into community, and they're not going through the traditional channels. They're finding community in different types of channels. And so one of the quotes that stuck out with me, it was essentially that, and I think it was the overall takeaway, was like Gen Zers have broke the marketing funnel, that it doesn't exist the same way anymore. And that the secret sauce for communicating with Gen Z and millennials is around making them feel as if they're part of a community. And I think the intersection between for-profit, nonprofit, the ability to bring people together and to do something in community, I think nonprofits are inherently built and poised and positioned to do that in real ways. So like where Nike and other brands can make people feel as if they're in community. I mean, I feel like I'm in community with Patagonia, even though it's one-sided. They take my money, so I guess it's two-sided. So, and I get my products, but the reality is that that's very different. That what inherently in this world, this atomized society, that this world where like people are looking for community in real ways, and I think it's just so powerful for brands to tap into nonprofits so that they can really kind of go beyond just those words and actually provide those spaces for people to connect and feel like a sense of belonging. So all that was a long preamble into your book, because I think it covers a lot of this, and it gets in very deeply in in a lot of ways similar to the generosity crisis, where we get into kind of redefining connection. So we kind of say you have to rethink everything you think about connection, because the way it used to be is not the way it is today. So your book, Impact Redefined, unless you change the name, because Impact Redefined, Transforming Partnerships, Social Moments, and Personal Connections to Drive Change, I think is awesome. And it comes out at such an important time in society where people trust less, they have increased anxiety, decrease in happiness, all the things that we know to be true, that I think people are, and I believe, looking for a renaissance of connectedness. And I think your book really speaks to a lot of this. In fact, one of the quotes, you didn't know I was going to quote your book already, and I want you to be able to talk about your journey and where it when it comes out and all this stuff and how people get it. But one of the quotes, empathy stands as a potent force capable of driving meaningful, lasting change. It is the ability to understand and share the feelings, experiences, and perspectives of others that empowers individuals and organizations to connect deeply with a mission. And I think in this atomized society where AI is so prevalent and it's a very much a transactional one-sided thing, that empathy is something that is inherently human. Well, AI can be creative and AI can, or express creativity in a way. It can create precision. That empathy, I think, at least I feel like, is like the one area that we still kind of own the moral high ground on. So with all that said, huge props to you and for putting this out there. What was the journey and the decision? Did you always want to write a book? What led you to it? And then kind of maybe just a general sense of what it's about.
Yeah, no, thank you for quoting that and for highlighting that. I mean, I think I'd always wanted to write a book, but it was initially it was less about the work that I was now doing, but more around my cancer journey. And as I started to build Kaleidoscope and figuring that like, oh, these new ways of doing things, I'm actually thinking about not even new, they're just remixes. Like we're kind of taking things that worked in the past, but remixing it to make more connectivity around it. I really saw that there's like three key pillars emerged as things that were really successful in the way that we were operating. And it was really around the SPE model, social partnerships and empathy, creating social opportunities and social moments, not just online, but like for people to gather around and build community around initiatives or like causes or like-minded things. I mean, to your point, Nathan, I think people are craving to get together and around things that they're genuinely excited and passionate about in real life. And so there's a humongous opportunity for nonprofits to leverage that want and that need around what they're doing to bring people together to have fun. I'm not even talking about like getting on a podium and talking about your cause, but like, let's go to a happy hour, or let's go to a game to get like whatever it is, but like get people together that's powered by a movement or a mission. So really talking about ways to create those social moments we found to be really impactful in the things we were doing. And then partnerships, like really looking at what partnerships actually mean. It could mean similar nonprofits that are in the same space and working together. It could be influencers, right? It could be corporate partners, but thinking about how can we create mutually beneficial opportunities together, and how do we communicate what that mutually beneficial opportunity looks like, right? And really figuring out ways to connect those things. And then the E part of the empathy piece is really like, how do we make sure that we understand that there's a human element to all of what we do? Elevate the human aspect of our work. That can mean making sure that like when we're communicating as a nonprofit, what we've done, highlighting the human people that are actually doing the work and like understand why they're doing the work. And that helps create that tangible emotional connection of what we're doing and the work we're doing to the people that we want to also bring into our community. And so those are like the really three key pillars that I found to be really successful through the work that we were doing. And I felt like if I could highlight those and really bring those three things together, then I think that's really where the genesis of this book came from.
It's awesome.
That is awesome. I love that. I mean, your company is obviously focused in quantitative, right? The data side, the data-driven metrics of all of it, but you're doing it for the purpose of establishing closer relationships, that qualitative, that human element, right? So for a nonprofit that, I mean, we know nonprofits are often limited on resources and they say, well, this doesn't apply to me. I'm a smaller nonprofit. Like, what advice would you give to a smaller organization on how they can take advantage of your book, of these learnings? How to
100%
relationships?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the number one thing that I always do in any type of approach or any type of engagement that we work on is understand what is the story that you are telling. That to me is like number one, because there are so many organizations that have been saying the same thing to the same people in the same ways. And you really got to figure out, how do I now tell my story so that people can connect with it today in a way that makes sense, in a place that makes sense, right? And so, yes, we do a lot of quantitative things, and things can get, from a technology perspective, I think people get scared in the fact that they think that like influencers cost a ton of money, and they don't. But first, really think about what the narrative is. Well, the reason why we love influencers so much is because they're able to take something that can be completely complex and figure out how to tell that story and that narrative, and that create that authentic connection with their audience in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, which is remarkable. I'm obviously biased. And I also think that type of storytelling is what's going to be able to bridge that gap between those millennials and Gen Zs, as well as the other sort of traditional set of demographics of consumers and donors and supporters as well, really being able to be tangibly connected to the mission. And so I think for me, always starts with storytelling. And I think that this book really outlines how you can think about telling stories and connecting people in those social moments and in those partnerships, and using empathy to create those social opportunities and those storytelling moments for your organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Scott and I obviously work in AI every day, all day. Our hope, and the optimistic side of what we wake up hoping every day, is that technology creates efficiency that allows people to be more human, that allows people to spend more time in community, and not just use that technology to do more, but to essentially be more. And so I think your book just speaks so much to that. So you're probably off to a lot of book launches and things like that. So having been on the Wiley bandwagon, someone asked me the other day, was like, well, did your publisher help you with organize all this stuff and do book signings? And I'm like, I think that only happens in Hallmark movies, but it didn't happen for me. But I will say, Wiley was a great publisher and really gave a platform and a voice around things that we were really trying to talk about. How has it been? I heard, you texted or reached out the other day that you have some advanced copies. So that means you're like, it's either out, or it's already out, or it's coming out.
To be out. Yeah, it's supposed to be out May 7th, though. I'm getting texts now over the last few days that people are getting their books. So I think maybe they've released the pre-orders.
Oh, good.
So I think technically, officially, it launches. Thanks. Yeah, it launches May 7th. I got, I think, 10 or 15 advanced copies. They're all gone. I've sent them all to people. Yours is on the way. Yours will be there next week.
How exciting.
And thank you for your kind comments on the back. No, it's just been sort of a learning experience. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. I knew that I wanted to write the book. I knew that it would help reach more people and sort of get people to understand and learn more of what we do at Kaleidoscope. But also, I kind of want to be like you, Nathan. Like, I want to hit the circuit. I want to use it to get in front of people and tell the story, and try to figure out how I can use that to get some speaking opportunities to really help people sort of get away from this whole concept of it takes time and money and I just can't do it, to like, okay, let's really focus on sort of some core principles, because I think everybody can do it and it doesn't cost money.
Well, you're well on your way. I mean, I think how you structure the book, it's very tangible. People can absorb it and really glean the essence of it very quickly. So I don't think and I think what you share is very intuitive to most humans as well. So we'll end up wrapping up in a second. Scott, I'll let you close this up. I want to make sure in the show notes, we will put a link out for people to get in touch with you, to Kaleidoscope. We'll reference the Forbes article, because I think if anyone's probably peel back the onion and see how things are changing, or not Forbes, Vogue article, and then a link to the book, which we'll share the Amazon link there as well. So Scott, why don't you close us out?
Yeah. Well, Nick, it was awesome having you. Thanks for joining. Everyone who's been listening, thanks for listening. Definitely reach out to us with any questions you might have with what's working, what isn't, how we can be of help. Again, we built the Fundraising AI framework, the podcast, to make sure that we're a resource for nonprofits. So let us know what we can do to be of service.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending time with us, Nick. We look forward to seeing your success, and we'll see you on the road. I'm sure in some state that's not our home state, probably more faster than we'll see each other here. But it's great pleasure to have you here.
Likewise. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.